In this video, we'll take a look at how to create watermarks. Watermarks are really useful for stamping your name on one of your images or just helping to protect the copyright of your images when you post them online. And what a watermark is it's one of these text things that you'll see on people's images sometimes, and usually it's pretty faint. It might be, small and kind of off in a corner somewhere, or it might be really big across the whole image. It kind of depends on how you want to do it. You could kind of have it down here like this and make it, just kind of subtle, or you could have it, covering the whole thing multiple times to make sure that nobody can misuse your image. And some people are concerned about this because they might be selling prints, or they might have stock imagery out there, and if people can get their image for free, then they're not going to make any money off of it, or it's going to be a little bit more difficult to sell prints if people can just download it. So a lot of times people will watermark their images. For a long time I didn't like watermarking them, but then I started to find that I wasn't really sure if the images that I was finding online of mine were acquired legitimately or not. And so the only way to know is to make sure that any images that I post on my website for free have watermarks on them, and then that way I'll know if I see one of my images with a watermark somewhere, somebody got it from that source and not from one of the stock image agencies. So it really depends on the image and the purpose for me, but most of the time I don't watermark. If I do, I'll do it kind of down in the corner somewhere. The reason why I don't is because I feel like it kind of obscures the image, but in other cases it's good to have it maybe just discreetly down in the corner. You could also sign your image, that would also be just as good. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Go ahead and open an image that you want to watermark and save a copy of it by doing a save as, and then that way you'll have a copy of your artwork, and you'll be able to apply your watermark to that, and you won't be affecting your original, because you might want to, let's say make a print of your original without the watermark on it, and if you accidentally save your watermarked image over your original, you're going to be pretty bummed out. So make sure that you're watermarking a copy of all of your images, not the original. So what you want to do is you want to enable the text tool by clicking on it here and select a font. I chose Tahoma because that's a pretty standard font. You can choose whatever font you want, and you can pick a color for your font here by selecting either one of these color swatches if you have your color set libraries open, or you can just pick a color in your color picker. So let's do black for now. We'll just click on our canvas, and then we get this blue box that's ready for us to input some text. So let's go copyright 2013. And if you have some trouble seeing your entire text here, you might want to just change the size of it up here at the top. Make it either bigger or smaller depending on what you need. I've misspelled my name here, so I'm going to go in and fix that. You can edit text with the text tool by clicking on it. And if you want to move it around, you take the layer adjuster tool, the black arrow, and then you just drag it where you want it to go. So maybe we'll have our watermark up here. And if we want to fade it back, the easier way to do it after you're done typing, if you're not going to want to do any more changes to this type here, what you want to do is you want to right click on this layer and convert it to a default layer, and now it becomes an image. It's no longer editable type, and you can change the opacity here. And if you want to change the color after the fact, you can turn on preserve transparency and select a different color, and you could fill it in with white if you want it to be white. If you want to make a drop shadow, there's a really easy way to do that. You can just duplicate the layer, and then with the layer underneath, fill that with black, and then use the layer adjuster to move it down and to the left using your arrow keys on your keyboard. or down and to the right, or any direction really, depending on how you want your shadow to look. Then you can hold Shift on your keyboard and click on both of these layers and then do a Control G to group them. And with the group collapsed like this, you can use your arrow tool to move it around somewhere. If you wanted to resize it, you can do a free transform from the edit menu, or you can get to your free transform tool. It's hiding under the arrow tool. And can't transform a group. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to flatten both of these layers into a single layer by doing Control E. And now you'll be able to manipulate the group. If you hold Shift, you'll constrain your image or your text here in proportion. If you don't hold Shift, then it might get squashed. See how it stretches? Holding Shift constrains it. Not holding Shift squashes it. So I'm going to hold Shift to constrain it. That way it doesn't get squashed, and I'm going to click the checkbox to commit to my transformation. Again, using the arrow tool to put it somewhere where it's a little more discreet. So it works well there. Of course, on a light background, you're going to want to use a dark color, and on a dark background, you're going to want to use a light color for your text. Something like that works. And then if somebody goes online and is looking at my website and checks out my image here, and they download it, at least if they, I don't like it when people redistribute my images. I prefer that they don't. But if they do, it's better that at least it has my name on it, And if I come across it somewhere, I can ask them to politely take it down if I don't like how they're using it, and then I'll know, where it came from, because it's got this little stamp on it. Now these things aren't really permanent, because it would be pretty easy to just go in here right now and use Photoshop to cut this out, or you could even do it with Painter. Right now I'll show you how hard it would be for somebody just to cover this up. In this case, it's just, there you go. Copyright and watermark gone. Now I still own the copyright to this, whether or not anybody removes my information or not. I still own the rights to it, but it's something to know that a watermark's not 100% going to protect your image unless you cover it, with watermarks over the whole thing. But you got to think about how that's going to look. If I go and start putting these watermarks everywhere, all of a sudden your eye is getting drawn away from the important things in this image, and it's getting drawn towards all these floating pieces of text here. So again, it's something to think about. It protects the image, but it also hurts it, so you have to find a balance in how you use it and do it in a way that doesn't really obscure the image too much. Now there is an exception to this, and that's if you're doing design or illustration work for somebody and money is involved. Unless you have a really good relationship and you really trust the person that you're doing work for, I would recommend watermarking any kind of previews that you send them, just to make sure that you're protected and to make sure that you get paid for the work that you do, because it's not very hard for somebody just to keep the images that you're sending them and then not email you back. What are you going to do about it if they don't email you back and don't pay you? There's really nothing you can do. So what I recommend doing is, if you are ever uncertain of what's going to happen, with a particular client or a person that you're doing work for, just make sure that when you send them previews or anything up until the point to where you've been paid in full, make sure it's got these watermarks all over it. And you can put copyright with your name on it, because anything that you create is copywritten by you as soon as you make it. And until you either sell the rights or grant the copyright to another person, they don't have the right to use your image. You have the right to decide how it's going to get used, or if it's going to get used, or for how much money, and how people can use it. So keep that in mind if you are doing design or illustration work for money. So I hope that was helpful in getting you comfortable with working with watermarks for your images. And again, just make sure that you don't ruin your image by putting too much text on it, but in some cases it might be really necessary to do that to protect your image rights and to keep people from copying your image or publishing it without your consent. So anyways, if you found this information useful, It'd be cool if you would click the like button on this video and maybe share the video on Facebook with some of your artist friends, because this information might be useful to them too. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for my next video.